Hello everyone, George DeSantis here with a look at the market for the week ending June 30th. Actually, I'm doing this on July 4th. And by the way, wish everyone a happy July 4th. We'll start by reading the disclaimer. Trading and investing has large potential rewards and large potential risks. This video presentation is designed for educational purposes only and is not a solicitation or advice to buy or sell any securities or other tradable instruments. You must be aware of the risks and be willing to accept them in order to invest in the markets. So consult a licensed professional investment advisor for investment advice, especially since I'm not one. We begin as usual by looking at the weekly chart of the S&P 500. So here is the weekly chart of the S&P 500. We usually look at this one, recently anyway. Let's neglect this bar because that's only yesterday's data, and this is a weekly chart. So this is a distortion here. There's not enough data to consider it. So we are really looking at this bar here, last week's data. And we can see that the low last week was just 4 points above, 5 points above 2400. It was 2405. So we pretty much came down to the 2400 to test it. And it looks as though we might just continue to go higher from here. Now, if that's the case, we're sitting good. I'll be looking to buy back some stocks that I sold. And that would mean we're not getting more than a 2.5% retracement or something like that. It's still very possible that this thing goes lower, but we'll have to wait and see how that turns out. At the below these bars here in the histogram, MACD histogram, we can see that divergence, and it's being played out a little bit here. We can see that MACD dropped below the zero line, giving the bears some hope, but the bulls pulled it back up from the low here. So it looks as though the bulls have still got some strength, even though the bears are looking stronger here. All right, RSI 12 is still looking bullish. It's above the 60% line. Williams percent are above that 20% line. And I decided to put CCI back on the chart because we haven't looked at this in a long time, and CCI is a pretty good indicator using a 20 period. We can see that it never dipped below the zero line, indicating that this uptrend has remained intact with some corrections or minor corrections. Now on the daily chart of the S&P, we have a slightly different picture. We know that we had a bearish divergence here, and that seemed to have played itself out, or is playing itself out here, because now we have MACD below the zero line. Bears have pretty much shown their strength here. But as I discussed earlier on the weekly chart, we can see this bar came all the way down to 2405 and tested 24 level. It looks as though we are going to be going higher from here because this is an inside bar or a bullish harami. The entire body of this bar is engulfed by the body of this bar. So that's a bullish harami, and we are likely to go higher from here. We do have a triangle. If I plotted a line here and here, we have a triangle which might materialize as a continuation pattern and take this and reflect this market going higher. Below we have the RSI 12 bumping off of the 40% line, which is bullish, and we have Williams percent are still above the 50% line. I like to consider, as long as it's above the 50% line, we're doing pretty well. Now I haven't put CCI on, as I mentioned, on the weekly chart for a while, but here we have CCI on the daily chart, and we can see we have what we call a zero line reject. This is a zero line, and as long as we don't have more than 4 bars below the zero line, we call it a zero line reject, which is sort of a turning point in the market. So I'm expecting this market to bounce off of this 2400 level here and to go higher. So the weekly chart is looking pretty bullish still, and the daily chart is looking as though it's setting up for a rebound. So let's take a look at some individual stocks. So we'll start with Apple. Here's a weekly chart of Apple. I mentioned last week that I'm looking to buy Apple again. I did sell it somewhere up here. I'm looking to buy it again. I'm expecting this thing to hold at 42, at 142. You see the low was exactly 142.20, and the low here was 142.28, and the low here was 143.10. So I'm looking for this to hold, this support level to hold. So I'm actually expecting to be back into Apple perhaps this coming week, for the rest of this week. So we'll see how that plays out. Now on the daily chart, or on the bottom of the chart, of the bottom of these indicators here, we can see the histogram actually trended down quite a bit. So the bears are having some field day here. But that level, that 142 level seems to be a key level. Money flow, well, it decreased quite a bit. I'm expecting that to pick up. So let's look at the daily chart. On the daily chart, we had that triangle, and we set a target of 158.89, I recall. In fact, we might be able to see it here, 158.89. And now we can see this consolidation period here, and I'm expecting this thing to go higher. When you look at MACD histogram, it's trending up from below the zero line. Recall what you read in Alex's book, Alexander's Elder's book. Sorry about that. You can note that when the market starts trending up, when MACD starts trending up from below the zero line, it's often one of the best times to enter a trade. So we'll see if that plays out. At the bottom of the chart here, we have Shaiken money flow, now negative. So hopefully we'll find the bottom here. Let's look at another stock. All right, here's Facebook, a weekly chart. And because I'm looking at the ones that we've looked at before, just to follow up, what we have on the weekly chart is a low of 144.56. That was the previous low. And I would be looking to buy somewhere, if that holds at 144 or so, I'll be looking to enter somewhere there. This thing is now in the buy zone between the 9 EMA and the 30 weighted moving average. Notice the parabolic is now below the most recent bar. So that's telling us that there's a switch now from this temporary downtrend to an uptrend. As we look at the MACD though, MACD lost some strength here and actually became negative. So there is still some concern that this thing could go lower. But I love Facebook. I think it's one of the disruptors, and I'm not the only one. RSI 12 is above 60. And you could see the Shaiken money flow is still looking pretty positive here. So let's look at the daily chart. On the daily chart, we can see that low here that I spoke about, 144.56 on this bar here, and it's seemingly trying to test that here. So MACD, as we know, came back below the zero line. This was kind of a false breakout. And we'll see how it plays out from here. So I'm looking to buy Facebook again, but I'm waiting for perhaps a better price, 144 or so. Let's look at another one. And here's a weekly chart of Microsoft. Similar kind of chart, looking very similar to some of the previous ones, Facebook and Apple. You can see that triangle here, which is on the daily chart really, we'll see that. And it pulled back, okay? And now we have MACD in a negative territory. We have the parabolic above the most recent bar. So this thing could go a little lower. But right now, it is sitting in the buy zone between the 9 and the 30. So don't be surprised to see this thing move higher from here. And below we have Shaiken money flow still looking pretty good. So they're not running away from this company. Perhaps if smart money is still buying it as the weak hands are selling. So let's take a look at the daily chart. On the daily chart, we could see that we might be finding support at this low here, which is 68.13. Right now we're at 68.17. Hopefully we'll find a low here at this level and we can move higher from there. MACD certainly in negative territory, searching for a bottom, and money flow decreased a bit, definitely. But I'm looking to buy these stocks up at these levels here where they find support. Next stock, and here's Nvidia, which is, now this is a weekly chart. I mentioned a couple of weeks now that we've been riding this Bollinger Band here, which is 2.7 standard deviations above the mean. And since then, of course, since we broke above the 2.7 standard deviation upper Bollinger Band, we've pulled back, which we should expect, and never stays this high for that long. So now we're trending down, and we are likely to go a little lower before we get a buy signal here. You see, we're not quite below the 9, between the 9 and the 30 yet. We're closing just about at the 9. So I'm not ready to get back into this one yet. But the other indicators don't look bad. RSI 12 looks pretty good. Force index is above the zero line. MACD is trending down, but there's no real divergence. So this is one to hold if you have it, or to look for buying opportunity, I think. Let's look at something else. And here's Visa. Now, again, this is one I held and sold and looking to buy it back. Visa made a high here and pulled back with all the other stocks in most of the other stocks in the market, so many of them. And now we have parabolic above this recent bar. So we'll see what's happening here. But I'm looking for buying opportunity somewhere around this low or this low. This low here was 91.36, and so I'm looking to get in somewhere around 91.36. It's now closing in the buy zone here, so I'm looking to buy it back. Let's look at something else. Now we'll take a look at some of these same stocks on Best Choice, and we'll see this regression channel with Apple. First one is Apple, and you can see that Apple came down to that 10% line, fell below it in fact. It's now sitting at 1.2, at the extreme of 1.2. And so look at how this is shaping up. This looks like support to me. So I'm looking to buy Apple back right here, somewhere around here. If you look at the seasonal, on the seasonal chart, around this time, Apple gives us a buy signal around July 14 to July 28. If we just consider the 14-day period, if we change that to a longer period, let's say 56, multiple of 7, we'll see if we get there's going to be a longer period. So you see, you get in on July 14th, you hold it all the way into September, and the data there shows that it's an 81% win percentage, and the average profit is about 11%. So that's a good proposition, in my opinion. And here is Facebook on the regression channel, and you can see similarly Facebook is at an extreme of 0.2. It's way below the 10% line. So that's oversold. We saw that sort of thing before. And on the seasonal chart, if we look at what it does around this time, you can see that in September you're going to get a nice move here. In September 4th to September 21st, 100% of the time, 5 out of 5 years, 10% average profit. Let me stop this. And on the seasonal chart, if you're looking for something that you can buy and hold for a little while, looking at Facebook, we can see that if you buy somewhere around August 22nd and hold it at least until October, the end of October, you have a 100% probability of win percentage with a 19% average win. Now we come into the end of the video, so I can't do very much more, but let's look at one more. And lastly, here is Microsoft. You can see how it's oversold. It's at 0.5 on the extreme, very oversold, probably a good buying opportunity. Let's look at the seasonal. And on the seasonal, the best time to be buying it is here. I'm sorry, that's all the time we have.